Hello once again, it's Matthew here from Matthew North Music. Thanks for watching my latest video. And as ever, if you like the sort of content I make, be it about music, electronics or something in between, then please think about hitting the subscribe button because it really does help the channel. And if you also click the bell icon as well, that's part of the subscribe button, then you'll be notified of the next time I upload a video. Anyway, today is a slightly different type of video. It's about something that I bought. Now, as most people, I guess, who watch this channel, we're all familiar with how eBay works, and sometimes eBay suggests things to you that you might be interested in buying. Well, about 3 weeks ago, there was something that popped up as a suggestion, and I was interested in it. And it was this book, which is called Independent Radio, The Story of Commercial Radio in the United Kingdom. And I'll show you something that's interesting to me in this, at least. With this book, but also with it was a reel of tape, and it's this reel here, which I will then go on and talk about in a minute. But first of all, let's have a quick flick through this book. Now, what I really like about these kind of books is not so much the info in it, although the information's really good, is they always seem to be packed full of really interesting photographs of different things. For example, there's a nice old picture there of Johnny Walker when he was doing his thing. I think that's from when he was back at after he joined the BBC, but of course he started on places like Radio Caroline. And there's always, you know, as you go through, here's a map here of the different independent radio stations at the time, and of course in 1975 there wasn't that many. You know, BRMB in Birmingham, Radio Trent, where this book probably originated, and down where I live here, Plymouth Sound. You know, that was the only local independent radio station between here and Southampton. There was nothing in Bristol at the time. There was in Swansea though, which is interesting. London obviously had LBC and Capital, and you know, up in the northeast you had Metro Radio and Radio Tees, and in Scotland you had Radio Forth. But huge patches of space where there really wasn't any independent local radio in 1975, but within 10 years pretty much the entire country had its own independent station, because we had Devon Air in Exeter and Torquay, and then you had places like Pirate FM down in Cornwall, which came in the early 90s. But yeah, it's an interesting little bit of history there on that map. But let's see what else we've got. Here we go. What's this picture here? So there we've got a picture of a typical sort of independent local radio station there, and this is Radio Clyde. So you've got a reel-to-reel tape machine there, you've got a mixing desk there with PPM meters. Of course, you've got the ubiquitous cart machines that we used for playing in jingles and such like. And yeah, and there was some other bits and bobs. There's another interesting desk. That's Swansea Sound. And they had there a relatively posh looking setup there with a much more fancy desk than was in that previous picture. But again, you know, cart machines here and various turntables and whatnot. But what interested me more was the Plymouth Sound section, which I think was here. And so these are the Plymouth Sound presenters: Camilla Mackenzie, Colin Bauer and Louise Churchill. And I remember her. I think she might have worked for the Bee for a while as well. And then, but in the front you've got Ian Calvert there and the late great David Bassett. Now, Ian Calvert's a very well-known voice on local radio in the southwest, but David Bassett, he was the phone-in presenter at the BBC on Radio Devon and Radio Cornwall for about 10 years. And his show was absolutely compulsive listening. I mean, you know, forget people like Jeremy Vine. You know, we all listened to David Bassett in the 90s and late 80s and early 90s. But yeah, that's a pretty interesting book, and certainly if you can find a copy of it, it's probably well worth a read. Now, the main reason I bought it is because it had this tape with it, and because it wasn't listed as tape first, it wasn't that obvious that there was actually a tape for sale. And This is a tape from Radio Trent, and it says artist inserts, and it's got a whole list of famous people. Now, I don't know what's on this tape yet because I've obviously not played it, but I'm guessing these are all going to be famous people maybe doing an announcement for the station, like, you know, got Frank Ifield there. It could be Frank Ifield saying, hello, this is Frank Ifield and you're listening to Radio Trent on, you know, whatever the frequency was. But one thing that is interesting first off is they're recorded at different speeds. Some are recorded at 7.5 inches per second, but most of them are recorded at 15. Now, I think the reason for that probably is that the ones recorded at 15 inches per second were recorded in the radio studio itself, because that's the speed that that you would run, you know, recordings at in studios, particularly if they were done in stereo. Whereas the ones that are done at 7.5 inches per second, the chances are they would have been recorded on a portable tape recorder, like a Ewer tape recorder, for example. And so they would have those. And what they've probably done is just made a compilation of people on here. So if we look at the tape itself, which I think is in here, like this. Well, it's on a metal reel rather, and actually that's a much more recent spool than what the box is, because that very much looks like an Ampex spool from the 90s. Because I used to use these all the time at work. In fact, I've got quite a lot of these with tape on that I need to transfer. And if you can look carefully in there, you might just see on camera that they've spliced leader tape in between each thing. So I'm pretty sure this is the correct tape to go with the box. But there's actually a lot of really famous people on here. Obviously you've got Roger Daltrey, Barry White, Charlie Pride, the country singer, Harry Seacombe, the Sweet, Jonathan King, won't talk about him, Neil Sedaka, Dwayne Eddy, Paper Lace. I don't know who Rupie Edwards is. The Times, they were a disco band. Now this one here, Yin and Yang. Now they were like a sort of a comedy duo, and I think they only made a couple of records, but they did make a single called If, and on the B-side was a song called Butch Soap, and that was one of the very first records I ever owned. So I'm interested to hear that. But UFO, the Stylistics, Linda Lewis, Peter Noonan of Herman's Hermits, Guys and Dolls, the Seekers and Mud. So if these are the actual people talking on here, then this is going to be a really, really interesting tape. It might just be a presenter just introducing them or something, but I'm not sure. So what we're going to do, we're going to stick this on the tape recorder and we're going to do a transfer and see what we get. Okay, I've got my laptop set up here with Audition to record the audio, and I'll just fire that into record now, and I'll go over and hit play and see what happens. Okay, well this sounds like it's at 50 nips and not 7.5. Oh, it's Ian Anderson. Okay, so it's not what's written on the box, and it's at 50 nips, but that's not a problem because I can speed this tape up using software. I do have a machine here that does do 15 inches per second, but this one's the one that's wired in, so it's more convenient to use. But that's not a problem at all. Now, hopefully, there might be something that's recorded at 7.5 next. Let's have a listen. Oh, it's just stopped. And that's because it's got some red leader tape. And you can see there's a light here. And when it's not thick, as in solid colour, then it automatically stops because it's it thinks it's come to the end of the tape. So if I just keep my finger on the button, then when it gets to the tape...
Happy Christmas from Osibisa.
Oh, Ozzy Bisa. Oh, that's good. Okay, so we know there's stuff on this tape. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to carry on transferring all of this, and I will then play you the results. Well then, this tape turned out to be a bit of a revelation because there's actually more on here than what's written on the box, and not everything is in the order that was written on the box either. So what I'm going to do now, I'm not going to play you all of it, but I'm going to play you through the camera a few clips so you get a kind of a taste of what was actually on this tape. This is all then digitized into the computer, and what I'll do is I'll play you a bit of this bit here to start with so you get an idea.
This is Harry Seacombe on Radio Trent. Welcome to the world's first underwater radio station. Be my... Hey, there's a fish. Hello, darling.
So there you go, dear old Sir Harry Seacombe there, and that's probably not been heard for many years. Now I've just clipped up a few by sticking markers in, and I'll just play a few bits at random.
Hi, this is Midge of Slick, and I'd like to wish all the Radio Trent listeners a very Merry Christmas.
So that's Midge Ure, obviously went on to become Ultravox, but he was in a band called Slick. Now, there's not many interviews with Slick. They weren't around very long, and to have that in, you know, full quality, it's quite a rare piece of audio, and this is kind of a theme on this tape, so I'm going to play you a few more.
Hello, this is Ian Hunter, and I'm wishing all of these people on Trent and all of the listeners a happy Christmas and happy New Year. God bless the Lauria.
So yeah, Ian Hunter, again, you know, doing an advert or jingle for a small local independent station.
Hi, this is Alvin Stardust, wishing you all out there a very happy Christmas.
That's Alvin Stardust, and then the next one is...
This is Bob Hyde from Canned Heat, and I'd like to tell all the Radio Trent listeners to have a very Merry Christmas and don't forget to boogie.
Now that's pretty amazing to hear Bob the Bear Hyde doing a jingle for a local radio station. Okay, well this next one I'm going to play, this is interesting because it gives a date.
This is Georgie Fame in the dressing room, wishing Radio Trent listeners a happy Christmas and a Merry New Year in 1977 from January 76.
Okay, so I'm guessing this is probably a tape that was made between 1976-77. So it was probably recorded mostly in 76, and that would figure with some of the acts that are on here going into 77. But this clip here, and I think I've got the right one, this is by far one of the most interesting.
Ho, 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 this is Marc Bolan, and it's Christmas time. You're listening to Radio Trent.
So yeah, to hear that from Marc Bolan is quite extraordinary, because if this was recorded in 76, then, you know, we're talking about something done within the last year of Marc's life. But also, it was around the time he was kind of restarting his career. The TV series was to come on a bit later. And so, you know, he probably was doing a bit more publicity and stuff. But I just found that absolutely extraordinary to hear Marc Bolan's voice doing that. I just thought, wow, this is amazing, because it's not written on the box anywhere. Here's another one then that's a little bit longer than the others.
I'd like to wish all Radio Trent listeners a very happy Christmas. This is Sonia from Curved Air, and the rest of the band join me in that festive message.
We wish you a Merry Christmas.
We wish you a Merry Christmas. We wish you a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.
So yeah, Curved Air, they're doing a nice little Christmas jingle then. So yeah, these are all Christmas jingles that are on here, and there's a whole load of them. There's about, if you take all the gaps out, it's probably about 10-12 minutes worth of stuff on this tape. And I'll just play you a couple more completely at random.
Hello, this is Tony Hatch
and Jackie Trent,
and we would very much like to wish all the Radio Trent listeners a Merry Christmas
and a happy and a prosperous New Year.
And I'll play these two here.
Hello there, Nigel Fletcher here of Lieutenant Pigeon. I'd like to wish a very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year to all the listeners of Radio Trent on 301.
Hello, 301 listeners. This is Roger Chapman from Streetwalkers. And being as it's Christmas, and you've all got your cake and your turkey and stuff in it, Merry Christmas and have a good New Year. Don't get too drunk, because we will.
Well then, I guess I should tell you then what is actually on this tape, because there is too much on here for me to put in this video. And also, I kind of think because they're Christmas things, then really I should wait till Christmas to put some of these out. Now, really, this video maybe I should have done at Christmas, but I kind of thought, well, it's a quick and easy video to do, and I haven't put much up in the last couple of weeks, so I thought some of you would find this interesting. But there's a whole list of people that are on this tape. So in order of how they appear on the tape, we've got Ian Anderson from Jethro Tull. We've then got the band Ozzy Bisa. We then have Jimmy James. We then have Errol Brown from Hot Chocolate. Ian from Pilot. Then we've got Alan Clark, obviously formerly of the Animals. Then we've got Chet from the Ohio Players. Then we've got the Midge-Ure from Slick One, obviously Midge-Ure pre-Ultravox. Ian Hunter follows that. Then we've got Alvin Stardust. Then we've got the Bob Height from Canned Heat one. Then it's Leo Sayer, and followed by Leo Sayer was that lovely clip of Marc Bolan. Then we've got Julie Felix. Then we've got Roger Cook, he of the Cook Report. Georgie Fame follows that, which is one I played you earlier. Then we've got a great one from the sensational Alex Harvey Band. Then we've got Jim Lee from Slade. We've got Russ Ballard. We've got Clifford T. Ward. We've got the late, great Tim Rose, who I was very lucky enough to meet back in '99, so 25 years ago now, and he only passed away, 3 years after that. Then we've got Roy Orbison. Jonathan King appears. In fact, he appears several times on this tape. Then Gary Taylor from Fox. Obi from the Four Tops. Sonia Christine and Curved Air, which I played you a bit earlier. Bill Elliott from Splinter. Barry White. Charlie Pride. Then there's that Sir Harry Seacombe clip, followed by Brian Connolly from The Sweet. Then we've got Neil Sedaka, Dwayne Eddy, Polly Brown, Chris Morris from Paper Lace. Then we got this Rupee Edwards. Then we've got The Times. Then we've got Yin and Yang. Then we've got Phil Mogg from UFO. Then we've got Aria Love from The Stylistics. I think that's how the name's pronounced anyway. Then we've got Peter Noon, he of formerly of Herman's Hermits. Then we've got Teresa from Guys and Dolls, and obviously Teresa from Guys and Dolls went on to be Teresa from Dollar, who's recently restarted her career, so that's all good. Then Les Gray from Mud. We've then got Lulu. Then we've got a nice little clip from Alice Cooper, and he's followed by Cliff Richard. Then Dale Griffin from What the Hoople. Rusty Young from Poco. Dewey Burnell from America. I think it's Dewey anyway. That's what I wrote down. Then Tony Hatch and Jackie Trent. Then there's good old Wilco Johnson. Back then, of course, from Dr. Feelgood. Then there's a really nice clip of Keith Moon of The Who. And then he's followed by Barry Blue. And then after Barry Blue's Nigel Pleasure of Lieutenant Pigeon. And the last person on the tape was Roger Chapman from Streetwalkers. So that is a lot of people on that tape. Now, whether they kind of clipped them up as they appeared throughout the year, or whether they kind of did a whole thing of getting them done nearer the time, I don't know. But I would imagine that most of those artists probably performed somewhere in the sort of Nottingham, Stoke-on-Trent kind of area. So they probably would have interviewed them either on location in the theatre, or they'd come into the radio station, because local radio was very, very important for selling tickets to concerts. And even now, if an artist brings out an album, they may well do the rounds of all the local radio stations. These days, they're mostly BBC local radio stations, and they would do all the interviews at one time. They quite often, well, pre-COVID, they would go into a radio station and they would use a thing called ISDN, which is basically a very high quality, or for the time, a high quality telephone line. You just ring both ends up dialing a number. But then they would go into, say, a BBC radio studio, maybe like the one here in Plymouth, and then they would just run off interviews with, you know, maybe 10 or 15 different local radio stations, and then they've got them all ready to go. Back in the 70s, of course, they would have actually physically gone into the studio, and if they'd gone in because they were playing, you know, Nottingham Playhouse or somewhere, then after they'd done the interview, they might just say, oh, could you do an ident for us for Christmas? And 9 times out of 10, they would always say, yeah, of course, and then they would do the interview. It's like the Keith Moon one. I think that may have been recorded around the time of Keith when he did his solo album, Two Sides of the Moon, which I think was 76. It might have been 75. It was certainly in that ballpark anyway, so he may well have gone on to talk about that, because he did do a few interviews. I think he did one with Whistle Test around the time of that album. But it's a great snapshot into the sort of, you know, musicians at the time, and, you know, what was popular and things like that. So it's a real historical timepiece, that. So I'm really glad to have got hold of it and been able to digitize it for future posterity. Anyway, nearer to Christmas, I'll probably do a video where I shall play out a load of those idents. But anyway, for now, thanks for watching this video. I hope you found it interesting. If you do, give us a like, and I'll catch you on the next one.